Today we sit down with Shevon Licorish, a true creative in the world of data and analytics within the NHS. Not only is he passionate about making data fun, gorgeous and accessible, but he also has a lovely way with words, bringing complex ideas to life in a way that truly resonates.
When we do deliver, whether a dashboard or a report as deemed necessary, then people can actually use it and we're actually giving something useful, not just clever, useful back to our customers.
We explore his incredible career journey, the value of mentorship, the impacts of role models, and why allyship, especially for male allies, is essential for driving meaningful change in the industry.
I'm kind of making it my own thing anyway to position myself to be able to deliver and give and empower in ways that wasn't afforded to me.
It's an episode packed with insight, inspiration, and of course, a little bit of awesome. Enjoy! Shevon, let's talk data. So I know you are an adopted Geordie, yes. But you're not from Newcastle originally. You're from Grenada. Grenada. Yeah. I knew I'd get that wrong. Grenada, of course. Yeah. So can you just talk us through your journey? Because I know it probably is quite difficult for those entering the UK workforce, because obviously you've got education experience beforehand. But at times, I don't know if always, that experience can be undervalued and you have to feel like you're starting your career again. Is that an experience that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the invitation and for having me. Absolutely, that's been my experience. So before moving to the UK in July 2017, I had gotten to a point in my career where I thought, I was it. I had my own creative side hustle as well as my BAU sort of job. But moving here, I kind of thought, right, okay, well, I'm just gonna have just a transition rather than a reset. But it was a hard reset. And I found it really interesting because in Grenada, so I worked in the education sector for the Grenada National Training Agency, who they're like the City and Guild equivalent. And being in that sector, you kind of think, right, you're looking at technical vocation, education and training and different things. And you're going, nah, the work experience you've had will, follow you. But it was quite different. It wasn't that. The reality on the ground was I had to essentially start from scratch, albeit I was able to quickly propel back because I had the experience in my back pocket. But yeah, so my start to the working industry in the UK was as a data entry clerk, and no disrespect to anyone, because everybody's on the hustle and you do what you have to. But I had gotten to that point, as I said, in my career where I thought, oh, what am I doing? And I have to take a moment to shout out Melanie Crawford and Lynn, at the BSA, who gave me that start, and saw something in me, saw that thing, and yeah, it's just been best step after best step ever since.
Amazing. And do you think it's like an ignorance, like a lack of understanding of the education system and I suppose career ladder in other countries? Or like, for us, we know these universities, these colleges, these schools, and it's the fear of the unknown in a way?
Possibly. This is quite a tricky one because I won't lie, and I'm probably introducing this quite early, but sometimes when you put those applications out, you get judged in such a robotic way.
Yeah.
And that's, that opportunity I sort of mentioned was very much not that, because I was able to be my true authentic self and just have a chat and just talk about technical things, personal things. And there seems to be that lack of opportunity in that. So where there's not that to begin with, there is really no awareness following that, because it's just this very robotic process.
Yeah, I think that's where redacted CVs are beneficial, because we all have a subconscious bias, whether we admit it
Absolutely.
or not. We're like, oh, I know that school, I know this, I know that, so I'll interview them, or they sound like me. And even if you're not doing it intentionally, subconsciously it's there.
Yeah.
And I think redacted CVs can help. So was your first job with the NHS then?
No, so my first job was as the data clerk. It was with an agency,
Right.
Just sort of back office as at one of the Newcastle retail stores, companies rather. But then from then, so I did that for like 3 or so months. But in November 2017, I got my first post with the NHS, and it's been, dare I say, sweet sailing ever since.
Never look back.
Never look back.
Oh, amazing. And so how did you get into the NHS?
So getting into the NHS, so the role I applied for actually was a team manager role for an MI team in HR Shared Services. Shout out to them. But I didn't get the role, and this is why I would never ever forget the experience and those two really powerful women in my eyes that I mentioned, because they were able to give me the opportunity of an existing post that they were struggling to fill, which was band 4. So the job I went for was band 5. So this was a band 4 MI analyst role, and I was given the opportunity, had a similar conversation, quite personal, quite interesting, saying, look, you weren't the best fit you were runner-up, but you weren't the best fit, but we do have this post and we think you'd be superb for it. That's how I got my start, and I was like, right, it's just happy days.
Amazing. And what's been your trajectory to where you are now then?
Trajectory. So started as MI analyst, and in that team, the NHS generally, public sector, money is always an issue, which can then sort of stifle teams and different sort of progressions and stuff. So when I went into that team, the ceiling was that band 4. So through that, working with the team and just kind of showing different managers that we're capable of doing more, and through that, they were able to create a band 5 senior MI analyst post, which has always been my sort of feel to positions. Sort of fun fact, a lot of probably, well, if not all of my posts have been first in posts, including in Grenada.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of the band 4 MI analyst. So that band 5 was created, went into that, and then that's when I sort of got introduced to Power BI and data visualization, and having a creative background, that just felt like a really interesting point. So from there, went over to Northumbria Healthcare as an analytics and visualization specialist, and just to kind of make a point about that transition as well, because then I moved from band 5 to band 7, and again it goes back to that I was able to be my authentic self and sort of bring my personal attributes and stuff, not just to the role eventually, but in that interview, in the presentation and all those things. So from that point it felt like a really natural marry with the analyst in me and the creative in me as well. So did that for a little bit, and then sort of thought, right, well, I do have an understanding of, the back end and what the data should look like and what you should do with it. But it was more theory than anything. And I got the opportunity back at the NHS Business Services Authority to do the data architect role again, sort of first in post type thing. It was early days. And just that was a really sort of excellent experience, because now I can't stop harping on about the importance of data architecture in everything we do. From there, did that for about a year and a half, which was awesome. And now I'm at NHS Kent and Medway ICB as head of data visualization and innovation.
Amazing. Yeah. Fair play. And I know you've described data visualization as being gorgeous.
Absolutely.
Not everyone associates the word gorgeous and data visualization, but it is so key throughout data, but especially in healthcare, making it more engaging, accessible, easier to understand. Why do you think that's so pivotal in healthcare?
Because it gives us the insight to make better decisions. It allows us to make better data-driven decisions, to be specific. You can sit and do a ton of work. We're on this podcast right now, but if we just leave it as is, we collect all of this data, whether audio, whether video, and we do nothing with it, then what's the product? And that's what data visualization offers us. It offers everybody else. That very cliche visual bit that goes with everything that you might have thought you understood. And where you thought you understood a thing, it can give you that confirmation of understanding that, and not just the confirmation but the evidence of it as well. And just to sort of add to that also, we are seeing, and this is one of my personal bits that I'm trying to champion, because we need a balance with data visualization, the conversation, and data storytelling. So we know we have data visualization, the usual, you think about it, charts and graphs and, dashboards and reports and stuff. But everybody at the minute, they're kind of shooting after data storytelling, I think, because it just holds that higher commercial sense, and you can do books and you can do different things. But because we're not marrying the two, we're missing a trick to it. And one of the tricks is, how do we get user researchers? How do we create that sort of cross multidisciplinary sort of area that really puts data storytelling and data visualization on the mantle that it should be? Because you don't just go about doing data and then you visualize. Do you know what I mean? You have to answer that big why. You have to deliver products that are real world, that can, going back to the health and care sector, that can be real world applicable, that can help not just decision makers, not just the C-suite people, but actual patients. The everyman like me and yourself and everybody else across the UK, to help us make better health decisions, to show us, right, this is what your data says, because ultimately we as patients own that data, but it's our responsibility as the NHS to do as much with that data as possible to give you products where you can, it can help you make those decisions. So there's a need to marry the two, coming back to the point of data visualization and data storytelling, and to look at that, the benefits of that cross-disciplinary team of, having user researchers in there, considering user experience and interface, and bringing that graphic design kind of feel and pushing that product mindset as well, so that when we do deliver, whether a dashboard or a report as deemed necessary, then people can actually use it, and we're actually giving something useful, not just clever, useful back to our customers.
Yeah, that's
in a general
so key.
sense. Yeah.
So like in COVID, and obviously we don't want to think too much back to that time, but I suppose an example of data visualization was heat maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was that a new thing, I suppose, in the NHS, heat maps, or has that been around? Because I suppose people like me out of healthcare, I probably haven't really engaged with them in the sense, but heat maps seem to be everywhere during COVID. Yeah. So has that been around for a while?
That's been around for ages.
Right, yeah.
As probably as long as Excel has been around in whatever form, do you know what I mean? Because you can, in the modern realm of Power BI and Tableau and different actual visualization tools, they're what are called visuals in the technical tool, but you could have created heat maps in Excel using the different cells and using a touch of creativity. But data visualization and the storytelling that was happening during COVID was surprising to everybody, but that's the point of it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? They were using the data and looking at it and making sure it was curated properly, and adding that product on top of it, going, right, these are the whys, this is the story we want to tell, and this is the evidence to it. Do you know what I mean? And everybody was like, so it was a really, really shit time, but it was a key moment, I think, for data visualization and data storytelling across the world, not just the UK.
Yeah, definitely. And then how do we engage with data visualization just day to day outside of healthcare? I suppose wearables are a good example of that, like your iWatch that you're wearing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say as well, when you talk data with people, they tend to go think ones and zeros, and they tend to think like, oh, it's this big on-prem server type thing that's sucking everything in, but it's not just ones and zeros. We're creating data right here. There's observational data. There's, the actual ones and zeros. There's patient data. There's different thing, visual data. Do you know what I mean? It's recognizing that there's all of that to come into play to everything we're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, people do say to me, what is data? And I'm like, great question. What is data? It's a space I operate in, but it is like the weather is data, the
absolutely.
time, everything you were discussing then. But there is a barrier, isn't there, I think?
I think there is a barrier. So it's that level of awareness and understanding, because I think we don't take the opportunity to have more of these conversations. That's why, thumbs up to you and the podcast and everything you're doing, to have that open air kind of conversation, to let people see, oh, hang on a minute, no, this, when you're talking data, it's not just like, scientists with beakers and, all sorts of technical things happening. It's a me and you conversation. Like I just said, data's everywhere, data's all around us. So is data visualization and storytelling. That's why branding and everything is so important. Do you know what I mean? And it's all over. And you mentioned like, the iWatch and your telephones and your different things, like those again are data visualization stuff, but it comes back to that developing the product, or approaching it rather with the product mindset, because what happens is Apple, they go out and they do the user research and they think about what kind of great benefits do we want to deliver back to the customer, and then they develop from there. Steve Jobs likes to say he doesn't do the technology first. He does the customer experience first and then work back. So in doing that, you get to understand the customer, but sometimes we don't necessarily do that. And that's something we also need to do in data visualization and data storytelling, starting with the why, starting with the story idea, but bringing the customer in and going, right, let's just talk. And it's having that data confidence and competence as well. Do you know what I mean? Where you can teach people. So everybody's now going on about AI this, and AI is going to save the world and take us to the moon and yada, yada, yada. But then I have a fear that we're going to end up in a situation where nobody understands it, especially the everyman.
Yeah,
and that's where we need to first look at that sort of barrier, and get the confidence up, get the competence up, so that people understand, so that the layman understands, what's happening and why these things are important and why data is part and parcel of everything.
Yeah, and I think this is why the podcast hopefully does empower people, because obviously businesses want to make better data-driven decisions, but so should individuals as well.
Yep.
So going back to your roles at the NHS, and I think another unique thing about data leadership roles is, like you mentioned, not many of them have had predecessors, so you're kind of carving your own path, which is fun in a way, I imagine, but also challenging. So how have you found that? And within the NHS, have you had an element of freedom, or has it been quite confined?
That's an interesting question. I think it varies, because sometimes you can be left to the peril of your manager, or sometimes you can be left to the excitement of your manager, and it's just really that sort of autonomy that you're given, based on what your line manager or your team or whoever else understands. So a big thing for me is around like psychological safety in the workplace, and that psychological contract as well, which is a thing that people don't necessarily think about all the time, particularly managers and leaders, because managers aren't always leaders. And I've found that I've had my accent is coming through. I've had hard times, but I've also equally had really awesome times as well. In terms of teams I've been with. So I'd say, it's a bit of both really. And within the NHS, I think we just have that mix, but I don't know, this is really weird. When I think about it, my heart aches sometimes on my journey where it's been hard, but I love it just the same, because there's no 2 days that are the same in the NHS. It's just, and especially as an analyst living in the data and analytics profession, it just goes from strength to strength to strength, because even in the bad times, you can either rely on your team or just reflect within yourself and kind of just go, right, okay, you know what, challenges to be solved. And when you have that analytical mind, you just kind of keep going. Do you know what I mean? So it's yeah, but going back on the psychological safety and psychological contract bit, I mentioned that because for me personally, I don't know how to just show up to work and do 9 to 5. It's really difficult for me, and that's why I mentioned the psychological contract, because I would stay at work as long as I think I'm getting something done. Do you know what I mean? So then, unfortunately, sometimes I'm just there like tinkering, 6, 7 o'clock in the PM, because I'm trying to solve something. But then when you don't sit in a psychologically safe space, you tend to go, you question yourself, what am I doing? So there's a risk to it, because then you clamp people down and you sort of apply control without applying control, so that's been a bit of a struggle. So it would be nice to have more managers, more leaders appreciating and thinking about those things and the applicability and the impact.
Yeah, I suppose an amazing thing for you within healthcare and data, and something that interests me, is like the purpose, I suppose, behind it. Because often data people, any industry you can work within data, but the end goal, like, you are actually improving patients' lives. You can save lives. Yep, is that absolutely something you think about on a daily basis? Is that something you're reminded of as well? Because in the data team, sometimes you can feel a disconnect in the sense that people associate NHS with nurses, doctors, healthcare professionals, and maybe not as much the data, digital, and all the other areas as well. But is that something you think about, like, okay, if you're having a bad day or whatever, you remind yourself that this is what I'm doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And not just me as well, shout out to the data and analytics profession as a whole, because we show up and show out every single day, no matter what. So we do it for the nation, quite boldly. We do it for, patients, customers, because we might be removed, but we're a major part of the cog. And it's important as well for us to get that recognition. So that's why not just at work, but in my extracurriculars, I support different elements as well, because there is this push to raise the profession, raise the role of the analyst in the NHS as a bit of a tagline. So there's AFA, Association of Professional Healthcare Analysts, looking at the workforce. There's the Digital Skills Development Network. There's a whole bloodline for AFA, which is includes the Women in Health Data Network, Chief Data and Analytical Officers Network. So a whole host of stuff that are just carving different pieces of the pie, but working collaboratively to solve the same problem. And there's a ton of work happening as well within NHS England and the overall NHS. Sarah Blundell, Andy Lavelle, shout out to them, looking at the National Competency Framework, looking at launching the NHS Data and Analytics Academy, like those sort of things, because our workforce is really important, and it's not just for us. Do you know what I mean? We have to plant those trees. There's a little saying that I like to use. I'll not butcher it now, but we have to plant the trees for the future generations. We have to be willing to plant those, to know that we might not sit in its shade. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite nice to have those different bodies trying to raise the profile of the analyst and trying to just create really sound, solid leadership, and they're all working, sort of in collaboration, like I said, tackling leadership, tackling the skills development, tackling that awareness and different things. So
it's amazing, very inspiring what you're doing. And I suppose, why would you suggest to someone who's just starting their data career, why choose the NHS over, say, the private sector?
Choose the NHS over the private sector because, like I said before, no day is the same. Genuinely, you have that mindset where you want to be a problem solver, you want to do good, you have that innate feeling that you want to leave it all on the table, you want to inspire and be inspired, you want to empower, you want to put yourself in a position where you take an opportunity to be an ally to a cause that's not your own, to a choice that's different to yours. The NHS offers you that, you know what I mean? So it's filled with amazing things, amazing opportunities, and amazing people.
Amazing. You should be their spokesperson. Shout from the rooftops. No, it does seem like there's a really strong sense of community, and you mentioned the networks that you're part of that we've spoken before, and I think it's amazing what you do for women in data as well. So why do you think allyship is so important? Because there are some cynics out there, as you know, like, why do women have their own networking groups? Me and you know why, but for those who perhaps don't understand it, why would you say it's important?
It's important first from an identity perspective. So why there needs to be that. I think, quite frankly, we need to move away from, and I'm going to be quite direct with this, men telling women what to do and feeling like they even have the space to do it. Shut up and be an ally and learn to be a proper ally. We need that. And that's been the experience for me. I mean, I just kind of knew to shut up anyway. So, but it's from a personal perspective, like I said, it's, be an ally to choices that are different to yours. Be an ally to different causes, because you learn and you grow and you develop and you do all sorts of wonderful things, and you get to meet wonderful people, and you get to be invited to be on awesome podcasts and keep promoting, and I like the ABS, always be selling whatever's in your head, just always be selling, always be talking about it, and that's the opportunity. So it's personal, but it also turns you into a champion, and you yourself feel so empowered. Because for me, being an ally to women in data and analytics, for example, just it's so amazing, because in both in my personal and professional life, I know so many awesome, powerful women, and it's just wonderful to know and get the feeling like you're in and around these people and just see them go and grow from strength to strength, and you're going, wow, that's something I myself can aspire towards. But also to see the inspiration as well for the grassroots and the younger generation coming up. We need that. And going back to my experience, just shifting a little bit, like I never had that. I had to, like you said, just kind of carve my way through, and it can be a struggle. So I imagine you don't have a voice, you have less of a platform. We need allies to, offer the shoulder, so that, women and whoever else, persons who make choices that are different to yours, causes that are different to yours, to stand on your shoulder. It's okay to be vulnerable and, show your weakness and rely on somebody else's strength, or vice versa, offer your strength, to somebody else's weakness. And it's those sort of things. So it just sort of blossoms quite nicely into a lot of different things, and you just feel and become a better, more rounded and aware person, to be honest, and you have better conversations as well. And you know, it saves you the medical bill of being diagnosed with foot and mouth a lot of the times. You know, so.
I agree, and I've got some data around that. So studies have shown that when men actively engage in gender inclusion programs, 96% of organisations see progress, compared to only 30% where they don't. So it is so key, and we've got data to prove it. But talking
wonderful.
about yourself as well, being a minority, and did you have a role model that I suppose looked like you or spoke like you or came from your background? Because the power of role models is so important to see, to believe, to be.
Yeah.
And is that something you said that you didn't have in your career journey?
No, to be honest. And just sharing a little bit. So I have the tendency to look for a father figure almost in a lot of the things I do. Of course, I try to control it, but, you know, coming from and this is quite personal, but being vulnerable, coming from a single parent household. So I was, you know, raised by my late grandmom, who was everything to me, father, uncle, grandma, mother. Do you know what,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? So I've kind of had to struggle through that, to not just constantly go, oh, can you be my mentor? Oh, can you be my mentor? You know, and latch on to every single bit. But I've not had a clear trajectory where I've gone, all right, can you be my mentor? Because I'm going to get to ABC and, you know, work that way. So not really. But I will say, though, I'm taking more ownership of that, and actually asking persons, you know, with a plan, right, this is where I want to get to. So one of my dream roles that I'm officially working on is becoming a Chief Data and Analytical Officer. So Dr. Mark Farr, so he's my mentor at the minute. Rob Robson, you know, shout out to him. He's my mentor as well. So, you know, Ronnie Arafin, not officially, but, you know, he guides, and it's not just males either. You know, I have, you know, Ruth Holland, who, you know, all these people, they take the time just, you know, out of their extremely busy days to just have a chat. So it's the whole mentorship thing is really important. But just from a ethnic minority perspective, this is probably gonna sound really controversial, but as much as I've not seen people who look exactly like me in the positions and roles that I want to be in, you can see yourself in people that don't look like you, you know, and I've always been blessed to have that, whether it's the universe or my skill or whatever. I'm not trying to sound too pompous on that one, but that's always worked for me, and I've always been able to use that, and I'm recycling that to then truly be for somebody else or some other, you know, the generation to come, going, right, that person does look exactly like me, to have that representation, to say to them, no, let's have a conversation. I want to give you a platform. I want to give you a voice. I want to empower you to say or to know that you can actually come forward and speak and go, can you be my mentor? And I'll go, yeah, of course you can. Do you know what I mean? And then just take it forward and then recycle it, you know, so then each one teach one, and then you just kind of keep going forward. So no to having that official sort of steps with mentors, but I'm kind of making it my own thing anyway, to position myself to be able to deliver and give and empower in ways that wasn't afforded to me.
Yeah, that's so key. And representation is important. And we do know, for example, like I've seen Jill Scott talking, and she's obviously a very successful footballer. And now she's a role model for so many young females coming through, and males, no doubt. Yeah. But at the time, she didn't have that. So it is key. But at the same time, your role models, just because they look like you, doesn't mean you can relate to them, you know, so it goes beyond that, like the point you made, like your values, how someone approaches a situation. And I think that's amazing to identify that in someone and also be proactive. So going back to those conversations and mentors you discussed, did you approach those people and say, look, for whatever reason, I think you're great, I want to be you one day, can we talk? Was it that bold?
Yeah. It was, which sounds real, uncharacteristic for me because I'm quite introverted and shy in general. But yeah, because it you have to just own it.
You do.
Sometimes,
you do.
To be honest, else you're not going to be seen, you're not going to be heard. And I know there are going to be some analysts or some persons in the data and analytics profession going, oh, Shevon, you know it's hard. And I do know it's hard, but you have to talk to people.
You do. You have to put yourself out there.
Yeah, you have to absolutely put yourself out there. But when you do, find your method. Go on a journey to find your authentic self, push it forward and be unapologetic about it. Find your method. So me, for example, after we've had this conversation, I'm gonna need a solid 3 hours just recouping. But that's how I get my battery re-energized.
Yeah.
But you have to. That's with the finding yourself bit. You're talking to people, finding your method, because we're great big ships. There's like another saying. I love a good quote, to be honest. That great ships aren't built to be kept in the harbor. They're meant for the seas.
Yes.
But similarly, great ships aren't tested on calm waters either. So you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and put yourself out there. So going back to answer your question, yes, it's been torture, not on them, on me, but I've just gone, do you want to be my mentor? And even if it's asking that question and then going, right, I'll answer me later. I'll take 2 hours just in the dark recouping, and then we, just find your method and ask the question.
Yeah.
And put yourself out there. And I want to go back to a point on allyship and the whole mentoring thing and grassroots and just creating a platform and giving people a voice and empowerment and stuff, to shout out, my region, Northeast North Cumbria. And, a lot of that is happening there at the minute. So, there's a huge collaboration happening with AFA and the DSDN and the Data and Analytics Managers Connect, which is another network in Northeast North Cumbria. So they're about to put on a Women in Data and Analytics conference happening sometime in May in the Northeast. And it's a massive thing because you need more of those activities. You need more of those inspiring people to get more of those events, to look at the grassroots and, empower and inspire and be that and provide that voice and platform for everybody else. So
yeah, it's so important. And we like to shout out the North. I mean, that's more North than Manchester. But we get left out sometimes,
Absolutely.
Don't we? We get forgotten about. All the fun stuff happens in London.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant that you're very pro community and getting those voices within those communities as well. So going back to, I suppose, the mentor and you pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, when was a light bulb moment when you were like, do you know what, I need help? Like, I need to get a mentor. I need to be proactive here.
Maybe about 3 years ago, where I thought, so I've never had an official career plan.
Right.
I've just gone, I'm doing this, or this feels right, that gut feeling, being led by my heart and just going through stuff. But then with the emergence of that, well, first it was like this chief CAO role, chief analytics officer role. And I thought, gosh, damn it. That sounds sexy as hell. I'd love to do that. And it's gone from strength to strength, with the CDON and, AFA and different boards recognizing, but also pushing for those things. So it's now more holistic as a chief data and analytics officer role. And it was at that point, I was like, Shevon, you know what? Come on, mate, get yourself together and start actually putting a plan in place. So it was at that point I decided to put a 5-year sort of career plan in place, and it hit me. you can't do this alone. You know, you have to rely on the expertise of others. It's that community spirit again, you know, with AFA and different things. And that's how I sort of got involved and decided to, with Rob Robson, do the AFA North Cumbria branch as well, you know. So there's a lot of things when you have the light bulb moment that it sort of triggers, and then you just sort of pick up different causes and you just run with it all, really.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's really important, like you said, taking ownership of your career almost like it's a mini business, because people in business, I mean, at first I was winging it to some degree, but it was like, no, I definitely need a 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 year plan. And sometimes it's like I'm barely getting by day. I can't be thinking about 10 years ahead, but you do need to be strategic with your career, don't you?
Absolutely.
So when is the aim then? We'll put it out there in the universe. When do you want to get that chief title?
So I think that 5-year plan has sort of been extended.
That's fine.
A little bit.
We can pivot.
To probably something like a 10-year plan. So probably in the next 5 years.
Amazing.
I'd say, I'm putting work in for that, and just trying to network, get to know the right people, get to you know, sort of hone my shadow craft of influence as it were, and just really be something to somebody that sort of was never, that I didn't have, you know, as an opportunity, and just give back, really, because giving back is important.
Oh, well, I have no doubt that you'll make it.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the quick fire data lightning round. So first one, what is a myth in data that you'd like to debunk? That data isn't fun, because it is. You get loads of opportunities to see different things. Going back to what I said, you know, really exciting data sets sit within public sector, not just the NHS, but overall. But yeah, data is fun, and data and analytics specifically is absolutely awesome. And gorgeous. Next one, name a book, event or podcast that every data enthusiast should explore.
Let's Talk Data.
Very good, love that. 3, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their journey into the world of data, what would that be?
Be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, solid advice. Finish this sentence, data is the key to.
Everything.
Love that. Easy, you're nailing these. And next one, what's a data buzzword that you love to hate? Because there's a lot of data buzzwords out there.
Pie charts.
Oh, because they remind you of school?
No, just because it can bring very heavy misrepresentation, and I just think pie is for eating.
Fair enough. Amazing. Well, good one. We'll end there.
Thank you.